Coming up on Oakdale Update, we'll talk with former Oakdale Fire Chief Jeff Anderson, who recently retired after 41 years of service. Plus, we'll preview some upcoming events taking place in the city. Stay tuned. Oakdale Update is straight ahead. I'm now joined by former Oakdale Fire Chief Jeff Anderson. Jeff, thanks for joining us on Oakdale Update.
Hey, Frank, thanks for having me.
You're 2 months into retirement, or about a month into retirement?
Yep, just coming up on 2 months here.
Coming up on 2 months. Well, is it hard to break away from not doing anything to come and be on the TV show?
Yeah, I had to fit it into my schedule.
Okay, so. All right, so tell us a little bit about yourself, Jeff.
Yeah, so I was born out in Morris, Minnesota, and went to high school over in Roseville. And I moved to Oakdale in 1978. My wife Kay and I were married in September, and in November of that year, I joined the Oakdale Fire Department as a volunteer firefighter.
You got kids, no?
I do. I have 2 sons, Kurt and Kyle. One lives in Woodbury, Kurt, and has three children. And then my other son, Kyle, is married and lives in Cottage Grove.
Okay, good. Are they in the fire business?
They are not.
How'd that happen?
Well, I didn't, I know Kyle dabbled in it in the Explorer program, and I kind of left it up to the boys. I didn't push either one of them one way or the other,
sure.
And they just made the decision on their own that I guess that was not for them.
Well, we'll get into it a little bit more about, what it does to your family. I mean, you're on call all the time and all that, right?
Yes.
So we'll talk about that later.
Alrighty.
Okay, so when did you start and you started as a volunteer in Oakdale, correct?
I did, correct, in 1978.
Okay, and what was it like back then?
It was different, much different, obviously, than it is today, probably like everything else in our world, but, it was strictly firefighting at that time. We did not do ambulance service like the fire department does today. We did first response on medicals. But the equipment was much more primitive than it is today. Mm-hmm. The fires were different because the products that were burning in the fires were different. And we were just, the community itself was not the size it is, so we were not as busy.
Sure. And so the fires that you were fighting probably were just house fires mostly, barns? I mean, barns, I suppose.
Oh yeah, we had some barn fires back at that point,
sure.
And yeah, house fires, and and I think the big difference with that and fires today is, today there's a lot of synthetics in almost everything that's in your home, the carpet, the furniture, the clothing we wear, everything. Where, back then, 40 years ago, there was a lot more of just the natural products, wool and cotton and those type of products. So we didn't have some of the byproducts of combustion.
So does synthetic products, do they burn better, faster?
They burn faster, they burn hotter, and they give off toxic chemicals. So, the talk these days about cancer rates in the fire service are much higher, and that's where a lot of that's coming from.
I heard that. Okay, so back then, how many volunteers did you have? We're going back to the 70s, okay? Right?
Late 70s. Yep.
Late 70s, okay. How many volunteers were on
So I'm thinking back then we had probably 25 volunteer firefighters. Everyone was volunteer from the fire chief down to the newest firefighter.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. So if there was a call, will you guys have beepers? Is that what it was?
Yeah, we actually goes back far enough that it was before the beepers or the pagers. We had a big black radio box basically that sat on the counter at home, and it would go off and make a screeching noise, and the light would blink, and it would give you the address of where the call was. When I got on the department, that was fairly new. Prior to that, it was actually done by telephone.
Oh, wow.
Your telephone would ring at your house, just a constant ringing sound. You'd pick it up, and they would tell tell the firefighters where the call was at. So
How was that? How was the communication done? Is that was that through Washington County? I mean,
well, so
know
when I first joined, Oakdale Fire Department, we were dispatched through the city of Maplewood had their own dispatch center. So for the first probably 10, 15 years, we were dispatched through the Maplewood Communication Center, and then eventually changed and went with, we're now and have been probably for the last 20 years dispatched to the Washington County Sheriff's
Is
Department.
that right? What's the time frame from the time a call goes in to the time you guys get to the scene?
It could vary somewhat depending, and I guess I'll even go back to, the difference can be between having all volunteer firefighters and to where we are today, where we're a combination, where we have some career firefighters and some volunteer. So the difference is a call would come in, someone calls 911, the dispatch center processes that call and pages out the fire department. That may take, a minute or two. Your pager goes off. The volunteer firefighters then, most of them are at home. So if it's in the middle of the night, you get up, you get dressed, you get in the car, you drive to the fire station, you get on the fire equipment and then respond from there to the incident. So now the difference there, and that could be probably anywhere from, from the time you make that call to the time the first truck arrives on scene. I guess the goal was to get there within 8 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes that was possible, sometimes not, depending on weather and time of day and that kind of stuff. So we've taken out some of that by having some career firefighters. We've taken out that portion of getting dressed and responding from home to the fire station. That's gone because the firefighters are at the station when the call comes in. So they go out immediately, get on the equipment and respond.
So these guys are at the station, is that correct, now, at this point?
Correct, the career firefighters. So we still had a mix of career and volunteer.
Sure. But the career guys now, they're at the station and they're, they got beds and what's the schedule?
Yeah, so they work 24-hour shifts. Their shifts are from 8 a.m. So for instance, on a Monday like this, they would come on duty at 8 a.m. and they would work till 8 a.m. Tuesday. So.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty. And then what? 2 days on, 2 days off, or how's that?
Yeah, it's a kind of it's a convoluted rotating schedule. But yeah, they'll work a day on, day off, day on, day off. They'll have 3 days off. Then they'll come back and work a few days. Then they hit a 5-day off period.
Wow.
So they work about an average of 10 24-hour shifts in a month.
Okay. So is there a reason? Is there a rationale for that? I mean, is it psychologically better that they get X amount of days off, or how does that work?
Yeah, that's what some of it is, and there's all kinds of different scheduling out there. There are some schedules where they'll work 1 day and then have 2 off, and then work a day and have 2 off, and it just keeps rotating. But it just kind of depends on the individuals in the community, they're serving, as to which schedule works best for them. So, wow. But that's what it is. You may work a 24-hour schedule and a shift, and not get much, if any, sleep at all. You may be up, for a good portion of that, or even if you go to bed at 8, 9 o'clock at night, but you get interrupted 2 or 3 times during that night for, say, an ambulance call. Your typical ambulance call, it lasts an hour to an hour and a half by the time you transport. So you come back, and by the time you get back to sleep again, you've been interrupted pretty good, and that's assuming you don't get another call. So that's the reason for letting having some time off in between there.
Oh, I'm sure. That's got to be quite a strain, isn't it? I mean,
it can be. It gets over time it builds up where your sleep patterns are disrupted like that, and I think that's true even for the volunteers who are at home. You have a pager, and when the pager goes off, I slept with that thing next to my bed for 41 years, so there was probably no one more happier to see that shut off than my wife, because she got to listen to it too.
I'm sure she shared it with you. Hey, back in those days, early days, how many volunteers were on the force?
So I think we had between 25 and 30 typically when
really?
When we were all volunteer, and then in the late 90s, 1997, the Oakdale Fire Department changed and contracted where we took over service for the entire city of Oakdale. Prior to that, we had done just the area north of the railroad tracks. But in 97, East County Line Fire Department, who was located actually in Maplewood, but contracted with Oakdale to cover the south half of the city, that was dissolved by the city of Maplewood, and became a municipal fire department. And then Oakdale expanded. And then we got to a point when we had 2 stations, one in the north end of town, one in the south end, where we had about 40 volunteers.
That was pretty crucial, wasn't it, when you split up and had 2 separate stations? I mean, I remember the railroad tracks were a big issue, weren't they?
Yeah, and it still is today, because we can, that's the reason we have 2 stations, you know, there are many times when you're going on a call, and if a train happens to be going through, you're cut off. You know, the only route we had that got us over the railroad tracks 24 hours a day was down 694, because there's a bridge over the tracks.
Oh, wow, really?
But then we had to respond all the way to 10th Street, for instance, if you were going south, before you could get off the freeways. So, yeah, by having 2 stations, we always assured that, you know, we had some equipment and people on one side of the tracks or the other.
So is that, the logistics of that is when a call comes in, does the dispatcher say it's at the north end of the town or the south end, or can they differentiate there?
Yeah, it's all now, especially nowadays, it's all done through CAD, which is a computer-aided dispatch. So when an address comes in, the CAD or the computer system helps pinpoint the address.
Oh, yeah.
And then once they know the address, it also will give the assignment of which station is to be responding to that call.
Go back to the early days. So you'd get a call and say it's 642 Minnehaha Street or something like that. How'd you know where you were going? I mean,
You had to know.
I mean, really?
You had to know where it was. You know, nowadays, that's a good point, is nowadays, you people can bring it up on their phone, but you know, on the CAD system computer, it'll map you from your location
is that right?
to the scene. But back in the old days, you had to know where that address was. If they sent you to 1584 Hadley, you better know where 1584 Hadley is.
Boy.
So you had to learn the address grid in the city.
Wow, that's part of the program.
Part of the training, yeah.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I know you held other jobs while
Yeah.
you were on the department. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so I when I started my career with the department, I was actually in the printing business. I worked for Lutheran Brotherhood Insurance Company in their in-plant print shop, and then went from there to a commercial printer in Minneapolis. And I worked in the printing industry as my full-time job, and then was a volunteer firefighter for about 10 years. Then in 1988, I got a job with a company up in North Branch, Minnesota at the time, General Safety Equipment, that manufactured fire trucks.
Oh.
So at that point, my whole life kind of revolved around the fire service. My full-time job is we sold, built, and engineered and built fire trucks. And then my part-time job was still as a volunteer firefighter. And I did that for about 10 years, and then went to work for a company in Lino Lakes, emergency apparatus maintenance, that did repair and maintenance on fire trucks and ambulances. So kind of in the same line of work, but rather than building and manufacturing, we were doing repair and maintenance. So.
How did that work back in the day? If you got a call to a fire and you were supposed to be going to work, or you were at work, or even, how'd that work out?
So yeah, that was interesting, and it varied. You know, if I go way back to the day when I first joined, you know, there were probably a number of the volunteer firefighters that lived in the city, and some of the employers would let people leave to go to fires, and you know, others didn't see that too kindly. So I mean, you had to kind of figure out your own situation. I know there were a number of times when I worked that maybe we had a fire early in the morning and I got into work late, or you were up all night at a fire and then you went to work and you were dead tired.
I'm sure.
So I was, you know, lucky being in the industry I was in. Those employers pretty much understood what was going on there, but it can be very difficult, especially for a volunteer firefighter.
Okay, I remember I was at Menards one time, and I was going through the line, and 2 guys ahead of me, 3 guys. This guy, he just got all his stuff, and his beeper went off. He was out the door in a flash. Left all his stuff here. I think he even left his money sitting on the counter. He was out the door in a flash. And I mean, and then I didn't see, I saw him get in his car and he ran, he went pretty quick. So that was quite, I thought that was really great that he did that. But
yeah, that was pretty common. I mean, it was, you know, when your pager went off, you went to the fire station. That's what you did. There, it didn't happen to me, but there are lots of stories where spouses might have got left at Target, or
Is that right?
they were in shopping, the pager went off, and the firefighter in the family. In some cases, it was the husband. Some cases, it might have been the wife. But
Sure.
they left to go to the fire station, and if they both came in the same car, the spouse might have been left at Target. So
I'll be darned.
I'm not sure how they got away with that. I don't think I would have. But
Oh gosh. It's what a people really have to give up a lot, don't
they
you?
do. They do.
I mean, really.
It's amazing, and I mean that's. That's one of the things that I'm looking forward to now. Is I told you I had two boys, and I'll be honest. When they were growing up, I missed a lot of stuff.
Sure.
Ball games, and you'd go on a call, and ball games. You'll be able to left a birthday party or Christmas, or I remember one Easter. We had Easter at our house. I wasn't home all day. It was a dry spring, and we had grass fires. We had like 12 grass fires on Easter Sunday. I wasn't home all day. So they, it's not only the firefighter that sacrifices and when they join the fire department, it's their entire family.
Boy, for sure. God bless your wife. I tell you, she's got to be a saint.
Yeah, yes, I tell you that. I would say that of most of the spouses of firefighters.
Really?
Is that
Jeez.
they all, at some point or another, have given up a lot of different things. Not only my spouse, but my two sons too.
Sure,
I say
absolutely.
Dad missed a lot of things that a lot of dads might not have.
Oh, absolutely. Gosh, that's got to be tough. Okay, so just get back to the East County County Line Fire Department. That was the station that's on Century Avenue. Is that correct?
Correct. Right. Yeah. Right at Stillwater Boulevard.
Stillwater
Yep.
Boulevard and down by Nolan's up in that area,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
Okay, so now that was East County Line, right? Is that what it was called?
East County Line Fire Department. Yes.
Okay, and that was for Oakdale and Maplewood, right?
Yes, they contracted. So they were an independent nonprofit corporation, and they contracted with the city of Maplewood to provide fire protection there, and they contracted with the city of Oakdale to provide fire protection in the area of Oakdale south of the railroad tracks.
Okay.
And then there was the Oakdale Volunteer Fire Department, which was another separate nonprofit corporation, and Oakdale covered the area of Oakdale north of the railroad tracks.
That was up by 50th Street, correct?
Correct. Our original station was on 50.
I remember that station was like a cracker box, wasn't it? I mean,
Yes, compared to the new station.
the
I mean, in
news
fact,
station. Oh,
I know in the late 90s we bought our first ladder truck, and we actually had to order the truck with the handrails on the ladder that would fold down in order to fit the truck in the fire station because the garage door wasn't tall enough.
oh my goodness. Yeah, to think, huh? Which gets me to, I'm jumping around here, I'm not following my schedule here, but that new fire station, the one up on Hadley and 50th Street.
Yes. Yep.
Absolutely the most beautiful fire station, if there is such a thing. Beautiful fire station, isn't it?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. And so that all started, but back in 1997, I told you where East County Line had been dissolved, and Oakdale Fire Department took over contracting for the entire city. Well, at that time, we physically did not have a fire station in the south half of Oakdale. So the station on 15th Street was built in 1998. And then about 5 years later, we built the station in the north end of the city. So, and that was kind of fun. I was involved in the planning and construction of both of those fire stations, and that's something that I was very proud of. What we ended up there with in both of those buildings.
Well, Bob Staglish was involved in building it, correct? Bob
Yes,
Staglish-
the station. Yep.
Bob
the
Staglish
north.
Construction. And who designed that building?
So there was an architecture firm hired by the city of Oakdale, and so I worked very closely with the architect in laying out the building, and we gave them a lot of ideas. I mean, one of the ideas we told them was we wanted it to look like an old traditional style red brick fire station. So some of that the architect did the final design, but some of those came suggestions came from the firefighters.
Oh, I think it's just a beautiful station. And I've talked to, I think Bob told me that they got calls from all over the country, people asking about that fire station and the way it's laid out and what it looks like, right? Have you heard that?
Yeah, no, and I know there are a number of other fire stations actually around the metro area that same architect firm designed after our station. because same thing, some people had seen it and they said, hey, we want something that looks similar to the station in Oakdale.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just a beautiful station. But you were on a good piece of land too, though. It's a good chunk
Yep.
of land, cornered, and it can go on 50th Street and go to Hadley. It's good.
Yeah, we
nice
got good
layout.
access to get out and,
Yeah.
and go north or south or get onto 694 Highway 36.
Exactly. You
Yep.
can get to any place from that.
Yes. Yep.
Station,
Yep.
can't
That
you?
was part of the part of the reason for the location of the station is you try to take into account all of those different factors.
Yes, and job well done too, I might add. I know. Okay, I live up on off 50th Street up there, at north end of town, and I remember when they were talking about building the station, how everybody was up in arms about the sirens going off, and you'd be leaving the station with sirens up 50th Street, and I mean, and it never. And common sense would say, why would you do that? I mean, it's pretty limited with people up there, so right.
Yeah, and we, again, that something goes back to Frank to the old days. Back when I joined the department, we had a siren on a tower on the back of the fire station, and
Yes.
every time a fire call came in, this siren went off.
Yes.
And blared to help notify the volunteer firefighters there was a call. And so actually, once we moved out of that station, that siren went away. Some of the neighbors were happy to see it go. Others said they kind of enjoyed it because it let them know something was going on. And now it was all silent. Like you said, they didn't get any notification that there was a fire call.
Yeah.
So,
Oh my goodness, we're running out of time here, Jeff. Okay, so I just want to hit up on EMT versus fire people. Now,
okay.
what's that all about?
So some fire departments may be involved in just doing firefighting operations. They don't do emergency medical services. In Oakdale, back in the late 80s, we made the decision to get into the ambulance transport service. Prior to that, actually the south end of Oakdale was served by Woodbury. Woodbury Fire Department ran the ambulance service, and the north half was served out of North St. Paul Fire Department. So over the years, all that changed. But anyway, we got into the ambulance service. So at that point, we at Oakdale made the decision that all of our people had to be trained both as a firefighter and as an EMT, which is an emergency medical technician. So we required them to do both. If you're going to be on the department, since the department did fire and did EMS, everybody had to be trained in both. And over the years, that progressed until 2004 when we hired our first two full-time firefighters. They were firefighter paramedics, and we got into then the advanced life support ambulance, which is where the paramedics operate, and they can dispense certain kind of drugs and do certain procedures that a standard emergency medical technician cannot.
So is that a regular ambulance that goes out? I mean, you don't send a fire truck anymore, right?
No, we sent just an ambulance.
Just an
typically.
ambulance,
So the people that are on that ambulance are trained, cross-trained as both firefighters and paramedics.
Oh.
So they do both jobs. The department does, probably this year we'll do close to 3,000 calls. And of that, about 75 to 80% of those are emergency medical services. So the vast majority of the calls that the fire department responds to have something to do with emergency medicals.
Wow.
Now, they may be car accidents, in which case we have an ambulance and a fire or rescue truck go, but that vast majority of them involve some
Jeez.
sort of-
About how many calls do you do a year?
So this year we'll be close to 3,000. Just to contrast that, when I got on the department, I remember the first year I was on, in 1978, we did 134 calls for the whole year.
Jeez.
We do about twice that every month now.
Wow. What'd you say, 3,000 a year?
A year.
You do about
yeah.
a year?
Yep. Yeah, so it's on the average of 8 to 10 calls a day is what the fire department
Okay,
does.
and that isn't hardly ever fire, is it? I mean, there many fires?
No, I think, the numbers for working fire where you have actual fire involved is probably 5% or less of the total calls.
Really?
Now, there's a lot of, fire alarms or calls that come in that turn out not to be, they're fire related, but they turn out not to be an actual fire. But yeah, and there's talk about that, is fire department the real name, or
Really?
should it be medical department? And we sometimes do fires, which is kind of what it's come down to.
Exactly right, yeah.
But there's a lot of tradition in the name fire department, though.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you sure have had a heck of a career, haven't you? I mean, really,
Yes.
you've seen it from primitive to pretty advanced training, advanced technology and all that, right?
Yeah, yes, I've been lucky to have the opportunity I've had at Oakdale, and yeah, we had some pretty compared to today, some pretty primitive equipment, and up to today, where we've been lucky in Oakdale to have the support to have some, first class facilities, first class equipment, and
Never
so,
spare any expense on that, did they? I mean, they always
no,
were
they have
pretty-
not.
Yeah.
We've been lucky, and there are other departments that will say that to us. Boy, you guys sure have some nice equipment in Oakdale, and that is true. The city and the citizens have really supported the fire
Yeah,
department.
but you need it. You really need it. Just one last question here. Just when you were chief and on the fire department, what was it like a day? What was a day like? I mean, did you get up in the morning at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock and go to work at 8 o'clock and 5 o'clock go home?
Yeah. No, so if there is such a thing as a typical day, and I think that's one of the things I liked about the job, there was no typical day. They were
Sure.
any day could change at any time for you. But yeah, I worked Monday through Friday was my regular hours. I'd start work at 8 o'clock in the morning and work till 4:30 was the official hours. Very rarely did I work a day that was 8 to 4:30.
Oh, really?
I guess in my position, today we've got 12 career firefighters and 25 volunteer firefighters. So, if there was training or meetings and stuff that took place in the evening where the volunteer firefighters could make it, I felt it was also my obligation to be at those
Sure.
training sessions or those meetings. So a lot of times I might work that regular 8-hour day, but then come back in the evening for another 2 or 3 hours of training or meetings or whatever
sure.
took place. And there was just a lot of meetings, whether they're at the county level or, at City Hall or with staff or with other fire departments. So a lot of meetings take place.
Well, you're all done. What are you going to do? What do you got going?
Right now, I told people I'm going to retire. I'm just going to take it easy for a while. Actually, the last month and a half already, my wife and I have been doing some traveling, and we plan to do some more of that, spend some time with my 3 grandchildren. And I don't know, in the future, I've got a lot of contacts in the fire service, and I
certainly.
wouldn't mind getting back in doing something maybe on a very part-time basis.
Sure.
But I'm kind of looking forward to retirement and doing some woodworking. The
Oh, good for you.
firefighters bought me a beautiful new table saw as a retirement
Oh, is that right?
gift,
Good
and
for you.
so I'm going to put it to work.
Good for you. Well, Jeff, I want to thank you so much for your service. 41 years is a long time. You volunteered, did a lot. You've done a good job. You were well received.
Thank you, Frank. Thanks.
Okay. So good luck to you on the future, whatever comes to your way. How old are you, by the way?
I turned 65 in March.
Oh, you're just a kid. You're just a kid. You got a long life ahead of you yet. Anyway, Jeff, thanks so much for your service.
Thank you, Frank.
And thanks for being on the program.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Okay. That's all we have time for this month on Oakdale Update. We leave you with a list of events taking place in the city. For everyone at the City of Oakdale, thanks for watching.